set here where you've got the Rural Health Clinic patient class, and you've got it marked to print on the UB, but not marked to print on UB by procedure code, it will roll those up. So you have to have, if you do have an exception out there, you want it to print on the UB by procedure code for Medicare Rural Health Clinic. Now, I don't have any exceptions, so I don't have to worry about it. I'm not telling it to do anything different than my patient class is going to do. So if you have no exceptions here for Medicare, you don't need to do anything with the exception section. It will go ahead and break it out based on our patient class. But here's where we want to talk about Medicaid. Medicaid, we don't want to break out by procedure code. We want to still roll it up to the 521. So under the 521, you're going to need to add an exception for your rural health clinic, financial class, Medicaid, print on UB, but not print by procedure code. And I want to specify this is one option. There's actually two options you're going to be able to use for Medicaid. One option is by changing your revenue code exceptions. You'll be able to still roll up. We're going to have to add a script to your server to change the quantity to 1 though, because without it marked Rural Health Clinic, when you roll these up for Medicaid, your units will reflect the actual charge unit. So you can take this route. You can set up your revenue codes so that there's exceptions like this one for Medicaid, where it doesn't print by procedure, and then we'll put the script out on the server to change your billing units to 1. Your second option is that we build all-inclusive charges. So I'll finish covering this one, and then we'll talk about all-inclusive charges, and you can see which one you like better. So on here, this is the 521 revenue code. If you have other revenue codes that you are rolling up into the 521, lab's not a good example. Let me see here. Let's just use 760 here. But any other charge you have or any other procedure code that will roll up to that 521, they will need an exception for Rural Health Clinic, Medicaid, and we're going to change our revenue code to 521 and print on the UB. So any other revenue codes that will roll up into that 521, you have to come out here and create an exception to do the roll-up. You have to tell it to go from the originating revenue code to the 521, print it on the UB without a procedure code. But that will take care of it, and we'll put that script out there, and this is probably one of the easiest methods to get set up for the Medicaid. You can hold on that for a while if you want until you get closer to April 1st before you do it. We'll be releasing more information on the setup for Medicaid here shortly. The other option that you have besides that is in your charge master. So in billing and in the charge master, you can create an all-inclusive charge. So I know I've got some all-inclusive charges out here. And I can find those by scrolling over to my all-inclusive column and resorting by that. So here's some of my all-inclusive charges. So the purpose of an all-inclusive was for Medicaid, rural health billing, so that we could round or pull everything into the visit rate and yet still be able to provide services that were billed under the T1015 procedure code. So the whole purpose of all-inclusive charges was for that. So what you can do instead of working with your revenue codes is you can set up all-inclusive charges here. You'd have to have different charges for the different levels. But you can set up your all-inclusive charges here for Medicaid only, rural health clinic only, have your procedure code for the visit and your revenue code of 521. And then you would not print the included charges on the claim. You would just print this 99213, or I mean not the 99213, the 521 and the total. So you can build an all-inclusive charge for each level for Medicaid instead of changing your revenue codes. So again, it's patient class, rural health clinic, financial class, Medicaid. You'll list all the charges down here that could roll up under that visit code. And that's why this is a little bit of work to go through and find all those charges that will roll up under the visit. You'll also put in your rate of $73.40, the 521 revenue code, and then you'll be able to use the all-inclusive charge for your visits for Medicaid. So again, we will release more information, but those are the two options you have to get your Medicaid correct. I've gone through two files. I said there were three files for this setup. There is one more, and in your charge master, you just want to make sure that you have your charge codes set up correctly so that they do have procedure codes in them for rural health. So like the 99213, I want to make sure I have a procedure code in there. Oops. So make sure your charge codes have the appropriate procedure codes and the right revenue codes. No, you can have exceptions on these, so you'll want to make sure you don't have any exceptions here that will bill incorrectly on the Medicare charges. So you'll want to check your charge master. I did have a question come in here. It says our Medicaid bills for RHC do not go on a UB, they go on a 1500. If they go on the 1500, you don't have to worry about it. Not at all, because this is still, because it's a 1500 and we don't use the revenue code, it will still list each service independently on the 1500. So you won't have to worry about your Medicaids at all. Okay, so that's the setup that's required there. And I'm going to jump back to our PowerPoint here and get us caught up for a minute. So here we're going through the master file, so everything is in the slides as far as the setup goes for the rural health clinic. Hey, Peggy, let's talk about the yeah, go right ahead. I don't remember what my question was. I'm sorry. I was waiting for everybody to catch it real quick, and I can't remember. I apologize. I'm so sorry. If you think of it again, just holler, and I'll be sure and stop, and we can get it answered. So if you think about it, just let me know. I remembered. I'm sorry. Okay. If Centric is going to create that total charge line, for that billable visit, is there an update that's happening with this? So, how is the system changing to that? Not yet. We have not, with the short time frame from when this was released at the end of January to the beginning of April, we cannot get the changes in that quickly. So we are just printing out the qualified visit line, but you have to go in and edit the total on that line if there's other services besides preventive services. Okay, so Centric is not adding those up. We're going to have to touch every one of them. No. Yes. Anything that has additional charges, and that's why I said we're working on a report that will provide information to help you, so you don't have to open every visit. Okay, but that is yet to come. Okay, we are going to make some future. We'll make some future changes to help, but they aren't available at this time. Okay, thank you. You bet. So let's look at what we'll be getting as far as the remittance coming back. So for any service line included in the AIR payment, all-inclusive rate payment, the following remittance codes will be received. With a group code of CO, contractual obligation, you'll have a line for that in the service line. you'll have a claim adjustment reason code, a CARC 97. And that 97 is benefit for this service included in the payment or allowance for another service or procedure that has already been adjudicated. So for services that are listed separately on the claim that are not preventive, then Medicare is going to use this 97 to balance out your claim to match your bill. So the service is listed separately but paid as part of the visit. That's what they'll use to actually balance out. They'll use the 97 to basically take it back out. You'll also get an RARC M15, so a remark on the separately billed services again, as they're considered components of the same procedure. So it's just a separate, and this is the description that comes with it. Separately billed services and tests have been bundled as they're considered components of the same procedure. Separate payment is not allowed. So you'll get those on each of those extra lines on the claim. That means the lines with the procedure codes that wasn't the visit or the preventive care. So in Healthland, there are a couple of options for you if you're doing ERAs. And those codes that I just had on the other screen, these will come whether you're getting a paper remittance or you're using the ERAs. You'll still get those lines on each of your services. So if you are doing ERAs in Centric, one of the things you can do is in the master file, claim adjustment reason code 97, we can go in and actually set up in the ERA adjustment code cross-reference. We can change that from contractual obligation to denied. So let me show you, because ERAs are confusing enough without actually viewing it and just talking in the abstract. So I'm going to go into AR, master files, underneath ERA setup, and payment or ERA adjustment code cross-reference. So this is a file where we take what they're sending us and we map it the way we want it to show in our system. So you would do a new, and you would come up here, your financial class would be Medicare. And this is in the guide that you got to step by step. But you would select your Medicare. The claim status is going to be what they're sending. So they're either sending saying we're primary, or they're saying we're primary, we're forwarding to the secondary. They can say we're secondary, or we're secondary forwarding, and the same for tertiary. So I just set it up for all of them. The group code you're receiving with this, remember, is a CO, contractual obligation. Usually we don't specify the group code when we set these records up because we're taking what they're sending and then we're just mapping it to a category. But here, we just want to map the CO, contractual obligation, for code 97. That's the one that tells us this was already adjudicated under another service. So we'll take 97, and we're going to tell it it's a denied. The reason we want to do this is those extra lines we don't get paid on. We can't take an adjustment on them. That would reduce our bill balance, and our bill balance was correct. So we just want to mark them as denied services so that our payment and adjustment will be correct. And then you always want to take this back, and usually I tell people to take it back to the first of the year. So that's taking your contractual adjustment that they're sending, your contractual obligation, and changing it to a denied value. And I'll show you what that looks like on the claim here too when you do that. So let me jump down just a couple of slides and then we'll come back up. So here, if you do it as a denied, it's going to show like this for each of your service lines. So this $3 was my venipuncture. It was listed separately. This was the first example we did with just the qualifying visit and the venipuncture. So it shows this as denied in the other activity column of $3. So that will make sure your AR bill stays with the right balance. and you'll be able to record those transactions. So let's go back here. And this is just a screenshot of what I did in AR to show you how to set it up. Your other option is under the claim adjustment reason file. So I am going to go back to AR to look at that. So we'll go out of this one. Up here under master files, claim adjustment reason. And you can do both of these, that's fine too. We want to look at your code 97 here. And we can set that up to write the AR transaction out there. And as long as we don't have our claim adjustment reason mapped as contractual obligation, this will just show denied with this description in balance inquiry. So that was a little confusing. We're setting our claim code up marked to write the transaction so it shows in balance inquiry. It will show with this description. So as long as under the file we left a little while ago, the adjustment codes cross-reference, as long as we don't have our 97 set up here to go to contractual obligation, then we'll be okay. You'll see here the standard setup for 97, and this came with your version 10.4.2. They were mapped as contractual adjustments. So if it's mapped as a contractual adjustment, then you can't just change the claim adjustment reason and it'll work. It cannot be a contractual adjustment. So you would need to change this so it didn't reflect contractual adjustment. So the best option is to set up a new ERA claim adjustment that was like I just went through, and then map that to denied. So you're going to want to do this step because everybody's is set up right now to go to a contractual adjustment. So do set this up. And then on your actual claim adjustment reason, if you want the description to print in balance inquiry instead of just denied, then this is where you'll change that. You'll set it up here and say write AR transaction, and it will use the description you have up here. You might want to shorten that description. It's pretty long. You might want to shorten it to something more concise and easy to understand. So you'll need to do that within the AR side. So just two changes there that you'll need for these to come in correctly. So I shouldn't say or there, I should say and. So if you want to change that to and, because I know that these are already set up as contractual obligations, so we do want this to be and. But this is how it will then show. If you also change your claim adjustment reason, it will show with the description. So it won't just say denied. Okay, now if you're not using ERAs and you're manually keying in your remittances, do not key in any of the 97s as adjustments. They aren't adjustments. It's just balancing the claim and letting you know it was paid under the visit. So if you put in an adjustment for the CAR C97, it will cause incorrect bill balances. You don't want that. Then the final step here. Now we've talked about the claim being inflated compared to the bill. When we apply the payments and adjustments from our remittance advice, our claim's still going to have a balance on it. The balance is going to be the total of those other service lines that were added up into the visit line. So going back to our first example where we had a qualified visit and your venipuncture, once Medicare pays and everything's adjusted, everything has happened on it, we're still going to have that $3 balance for the venipuncture on there. So this is something we've been struggling with. How do we get the balances off these claims? And so far we haven't come up with an easy way to do that. So to start with, unless we can come up with something better, you will either make sure that this has a printed and transmitted date on it, so you don't send it in again, and leave the balance out there. That's one option. Your other option is to